Look who I'm with now. She's smiling, sipping from a giant iced latte, rambling about yoga mats and rosemary focaccia bread like nothing in the world is wrong. And maybe for her, nothing is. But for me, everything changed last week. My name is Marcellus Avery. I'm 38 years old, and I've spent the last 10 years working as a supply chain loss prevention analyst in Raleigh, North Carolina. In short, I track patterns: theft, shrinkage, inventory, disappearance. It's my job to spot when something looks off. I never thought I'd need those skills to protect my own front porch. It started simple. Sienna, my wife of 6 years, texted me from the kitchen while I was at work. "Thanks for the Costco haul, baby. Just unloaded everything." But there was a problem. I hadn't been to Costco that week. I froze, reading her message over and over like maybe I was missing something. Maybe she mixed up the days. Maybe she went. I texted back, "Which haul?" "From this morning," she replied. "You left it by the door." I brought it in. My stomach dropped. Because that morning, I'd left nothing by the door. No deliveries. No bags. No boxes. I sat perfectly still at my desk in the cubicle and just stared ahead for a minute, letting it settle. This wasn't the first time. 2 weeks earlier, a set of organic produce boxes from a subscription we'd just started had mysteriously not arrived. Amazon orders marked, delivered, vanished within 10 minutes. Even a pet-safe cleaning bundle we'd ordered, poof, gone. I'd blamed the carriers. Then maybe porch pirates. Then maybe myself. Was I just forgetting to track packages? But now, staring at Sienna's cheerful message, I felt it in my gut. Someone was watching our house. Waiting. Taking. And they were doing it fast enough and often enough that I hadn't even noticed the pattern. Which, for someone in my line of work, was insulting. We lived in a modest duplex in the Garden Oaks neighborhood of Durham. Quiet. Middle class. Close-knit. Our next-door neighbors, the Dunlaps, were friendly enough. He was a retired Marine. She ran an Etsy shop out of her garage. They hosted cookouts, holiday-like competitions, talked loudly on their Bluetooth headsets while pacing their porch. It didn't feel like the kind of place this would happen, which, I reminded myself, is exactly the kind of place this would happen. I didn't say anything to Sienna that day. I told her I must have forgotten I placed the order. She laughed and said I was working too hard. I smiled back, but inside, I was already planning my counterattack. Because if someone was stealing from me, they had no idea who they were messing with. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, but because my brain was on fire. I couldn't stop thinking about every single package we'd lost over the past 3 months. I opened my laptop around 1 a.m. and pulled up our Amazon history. Then Target. Then Walmart. Then Chewy. I started logging every confirmed delivery that Sienna or I remembered ordering, but never saw again. By the time the sun came up, I had 17. 17 confirmed deliveries, all marked as delivered, all vanished within an hour of drop-off. I knew what that meant. This wasn't random. It wasn't some desperate thief driving around neighborhoods. This was someone nearby, someone close enough to watch our porch, to move quickly, to know when we weren't home. And I had a pretty strong feeling who it was. I watched our ring cam footage from the last 3 weeks. Nothing. The camera faced the front walkway, but the angle was wide and the lens slightly scratched. I should have replaced it months ago. I didn't. So I did what I always do when the default system fails. I went manual. I ordered a new motion-activated trail cam, the kind hunters use to track deer. Infrared. Silent. High-res. I placed it inside an old birdhouse on the fence facing the shared driveway. Then I bought a fake package. Actually, 5. All same-day delivery. All addressed to me. All real shipping labels. Inside, nothing but rocks, used paper towels, and 1 can of expired beans. I stacked them carefully by the front door around 3 p.m., just before leaving for my usual gym session. But this time, I didn't go to the gym. I parked 2 blocks down and waited in the car with my laptop open, connected to the trail cam via hotspot. 24 minutes passed. Then motion. I watched the grainy live feed of someone walking across the shared side yard from the Dunlap's house. A woman, hoodie up, phone in hand, carrying one of those foldable blue IKEA bags. She didn't even hesitate. Bent down, scooped the top 3 boxes into her tote like she'd done it 100 times, and casually turned back. But here's the kicker. She didn't go home. She didn't walk back into her garage or through her front door. She walked to her backyard, the side behind our fence, and slid the IKEA bag through the bottom slats of an old shed. Then walked away like nothing happened. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, silent. Then I smiled. I had her. And I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because what's the fun in that? When you can orchestrate something better. The next morning, I made coffee like usual. Fed the dog. Kissed Sienna on the cheek while she loaded her yoga mat into the back of the car. And I smiled. Because that old shed in our neighbor's backyard now contained what amounted to felony-level evidence. It was time to escalate. I didn't call the police. Not yet. I've seen how that goes. Reports that sit on someone's desk, neighborhood drama that turns toxic and loud. No, I needed something cleaner. Something permanent. So I made it social. That afternoon, I printed 10 flyers. Each one had a photo, black and white, from the trail cam. A woman in a hoodie, face turned partially away, grabbing boxes off our porch. The headline read, "Have you seen this porch pirate? Reward offered." No contact number. No address. Just a QR code leading to a private, unlisted YouTube video. Then I walked through the Garden Oaks neighborhood and tacked one up at the corner coffee shop, the community board at the local co-op, even the entrance to the dog park. And then I waited. Within 6 hours, the video had 312 views. By the next morning, over 1,000. Neighbors were talking. Some thought it was fake. Some were furious. Some were nervous. Then, something unexpected happened. Our neighbor across the street, Naomi, retired librarian and HOA Gossip Central, texted me a blurry photo. "You might want to check this out," she wrote. The photo showed Heather Dunlap, hoodie off, now in full daylight, pulling one of my fake boxes out of her shed, looking around, throwing it in the back of her Subaru. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That afternoon, I did one last thing. I left another package on the porch, but this one had a surprise. I'd rigged a tiny, battery-powered Bluetooth speaker inside. On a 30-second delay, it would start playing a recorded message. "Smile. You're on camera. And you just made this week's community newsletter." I placed it down, locked the door, and waited. It happened faster than I expected. 30 minutes after I set the final package down, it was gone. I checked the trail cam. Same route, same tote bag, same casual arrogance. Heather Dunlap had done this before. But this time, the box talked. I wish I could have seen her face. The camera caught her flinch, a full-body jolt, when the speaker started. She dropped the box, scrambled back, looked around like someone had jumped out of the bushes. Then she ran. Not fast, not athletic, more of a guilty speed walk, but still, she bolted. She didn't go back inside her house. She didn't go to the shed. She got in her car and drove off. That told me everything. I walked over to the Dunlap's backyard. Didn't sneak. Didn't hide. Just opened the creaky side gate and walked to the old shed. It wasn't even locked. Inside were 7 of our missing packages. 2 with our address still on them. 1 still half full of snack bars Sienna had bought for her students. I filmed everything. Every item. Every box. Every label. One continuous shot. Then I emailed it to Heather directly. No message. No subject line. Just the file. 10 minutes later, she was at our door. No makeup, hair frizzy, trembling slightly under an oversized cardigan. "Marcellus," she started, voice shaking. "This is a huge misunderstanding." I said nothing. I just let the silence stretch. She tried again. "I thought those were abandoned. People leave things on the porch all the time. I thought maybe. You thought maybe your neighbor ordered 6 sets of groceries, and they just evaporated?" I asked calmly. "Heather, we share a fence." She didn't answer. Didn't deny it. Instead, she burst into tears. "My husband doesn't know," she whispered. "We've been behind on bills." I didn't think it would hurt anyone. It was just food. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You didn't think I'd notice $900 in groceries going missing? She shook her head, covering her face. I'm so sorry. I paused for a long moment, then said, you're going to return everything. And you're going to write an apology. To me, to Sienna, and to every neighbor you've taken from. Because I doubt we're the only ones. Her mouth opened to object, but I raised a finger. Or, I said, I send the footage to the HOA, the police, and the Facebook group that has everyone's email address. Your call. She nodded slowly. I'll do it. Then, after a beat, please don't tell my husband. He wouldn't understand. I tilted my head, slightly. Maybe he should. She left. Quiet. Ashamed. I watched her go. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. But it wasn't over. Because 24 hours later, I got a message from someone I didn't expect. Her husband. The message came in just after 7 a.m. Short. Formal. Not angry. Just, Mr. Avery, I believe we need to talk. Today, if possible. Rhett Dunlap. I stared at it for a minute before responding. Then typed back. Front porch. 9 a.m. He was already there when I stepped outside. Still wearing his Marine Corps ball cap, arms folded across his chest like he was trying to hold himself together. I saw the footage, he said. No pleasantries. No small talk. I didn't believe it at first. Thought it had to be old. Ms. dated. Something. But then I found the tote in the shed. He looked away. She told me it was a mistake. A moment of weakness. But 17 moments. I didn't say anything. I let him sit with the truth. She's been struggling, he said, voice softer now. Health stuff. Anxiety. We've had a hard year. He paused. But I didn't know it had come to this. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a check. $9.50. I added it up. I didn't take it. I'm not interested in money, Rhett. He looked surprised. Then what do you want? I want it to stop. Not just with us, with everyone. I want her to own what she did. And I want you both to understand that this wasn't harmless. It wasn't petty. It was systematic. He nodded slowly. She's agreed to write a letter. To everyone. He hesitated. And she's starting therapy next week. I'm going with her. For the first time since this started, I believed it. Not because of the apology. Not because of the check. But because of the look in his eyes. Humiliated, tired, deeply human. I nodded. Then we're done. He turned to leave, but paused at the bottom of the steps. She said you were kind, even when you didn't have to be. He looked back at me. Most people wouldn't have given her that. I didn't respond. Just watched as he walked back to the house next door, the same house that had stolen from mine for weeks. That night, Sienna and I sat on the couch and read the letter together. It was handwritten, 4 full pages, honest, regretful, awkward in places, but sincere. Sienna folded it quietly. I had no idea she was hurting like that, she said. I didn't either, and I wasn't sure it excused anything. But maybe it explained something. I sent a copy of the letter to the neighborhood mailing list. No commentary. No caption. Just, for anyone missing deliveries recently. That was it. No police report. No HOA drama. No public shaming. Because sometimes the point isn't vengeance. It's clarity. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let someone sit in the truth they created. 3 weeks later, I thought it was over. Heather had returned everything. The neighbors had moved on. The HOA never got involved. Even the trail cam came down. Life settled. Until a package showed up that we didn't order. It was a small cardboard box, no brand, no return address. Just our names, printed on a cheap shipping label. I brought it inside, thinking maybe it was a delayed delivery. Sienna sliced it open while I pulled up our order history. It wasn't from Amazon, or anywhere we'd shopped. Inside were 3 things. A USB flash drive, a half-empty bottle of antidepressants, and a note. Typed. No signature. You think this ends with her? Check the shed again. I told her to stop. She didn't. I looked at Sienna. She looked back at me. Neither of us said a word. The shed was empty. Or, at least, I thought it was. I hadn't looked beneath the floorboards. Turns out, there was a loose panel. Under it, a lockbox. And inside that, photocopies of neighbor delivery logs, not ours. A notebook filled with handwritten records. Several receipts from pawn shops around Durham. And a list of names, ours included. It wasn't just us. And Heather hadn't been working alone. There were 8 addresses, all within a 4-block radius. I sat down on the edge of the shed, holding that notebook like it was radioactive. Who the hell was she working with? Why would she keep records? Why would someone else send us this? And then I realized, that flash drive. We hadn't even plugged it in. Sienna and I sat at the kitchen table and opened the folder. Inside, a single video file, time-stamped from 2 months ago. Grainy footage, dim lighting. It showed Heather and another man, tall, bearded, unfamiliar. They were in the shed, whispering, moving boxes, counting cash. The camera must have been hidden in the rafters. I looked up at the screen as the man turned toward the lens, smiling, laughing, and wearing a lanyard, one I recognized. Garden Oaks Neighborhood Security. I watched the footage 5 times, then 6, each time, hoping the man's face would look less familiar. It didn't. His name was David Rollins. He'd worked part-time for our neighborhood security contractor for about 8 months. Smiled at every family barbecue. Helped old Mrs. Everly bring her groceries in. Said good morning to me twice last week. Heather wasn't running some petty theft ring out of desperation. She was a mule, a front, maybe even a cover. And she wasn't the only one. By the end of that week, 3 other neighbors had come forward, quietly, privately, to say they'd also received odd packages. One got a threatening letter. Another found their recycling bin filled with flattened Amazon boxes they hadn't ordered. One man had discovered his garage keypad had been reset. Something bigger had been happening. Something organized. I handed the flash drive over to the sheriff's office the next morning. No drama. No confrontation. Just a folder and a timeline. And this time, I filed a formal report. A real one. The officer who took my statement nodded slowly. You're not the first one to bring up Rollins, he said. But you're the first with evidence. I asked if I'd hear anything. He said, probably not. People like him? They disappear before we catch up. I walked home slowly, letting that settle. When I got back, Sienna was waiting with 2 mugs of coffee. She didn't say anything, just handed one to me and sat beside me on the porch. I keep thinking about how close we live to people we don't really know, she said. I nodded. I built a life around tracking patterns, I said. But I didn't see the one right under my nose. She looked at me for a long moment. Yeah, she said. But you do now. We sat there for a while, watching the street, watching the sunlight shift over the Dunlap's garage. A new family was moving in next month. Heather and Rhett had decided to leave Garden Oaks quietly. No one talked about it much. Just a few awkward goodbyes. I never told them about the flash drive, or the man in the video. Because maybe it wasn't about punishment anymore. Maybe it was about knowing, seeing clearly, and choosing who you let close. Because in a world of neighbors, packages, and fences, some people don't just cross the line. They live right on top of it.